Discover the heartwarming moment. A mother's hidden strength was exposed in a life-changing dinner. In the heart of Riverton, a small town where everyone knew everyone else's stories, Sarah woke before sunrise. The world was quiet, but her heart was anything but. As the sun peeked over the horizon, she donned her diner apron, her armor against the mounting struggles of life as a single mother. The spirited clatter of cutlery and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the little diner, making it a sanctuary where laughter and sorrow mingled over steaming cups. Yet, even amid the cheerful banter, the shadow of her late husband, a proud veteran, felt ever present. His dreams of a happy family hung in the air like unfulfilled promises. As the annual charity dinner approached, meant to uplift struggling families, the whispers of the townsfolk turned harsh. "She's just a single mom," they would say, eyes narrowing as they exchanged sideways glances. Sarah felt the weight of judgment pressing down harder each day, stealing her breath and tainting their once tightly knit community. Still, she wore her brave face, pushing doubts deep to maintain the diner's heartbeat. An unexpected tension filled the air on the night of the dinner. As delicious aromas wafted in from the kitchen, Sarah's teenage son Jake, fired up by a newfound sense of justice, stepped into the spotlight. His voice cut through the clamor, standing up defiantly against Charles, the local businessman whose disdain echoed around the room. The crowd fell silent, hearts pounding like drums. "Why don't you help instead of ridicule?" he shouted, trembling with indignation. The air crackled with unspoken emotions. Sarah's heart raced as she took a step back, fearing that adding her voice would only fuel the chaos. She hoped her children could weather this storm. Even as tears pricked her eyes, with plates filled and hearts beginning to open throughout the diner, vulnerability wrapped around them all like a warm blanket. One by one, stories unfolded: job losses, battling illness, and relentless pursuit of a better life. When a quiet man shared his struggles, Sarah felt every word resonate with her own pain, that deep sense of shared hardship carving a connection among them. And when someone spoke of her husband, his bravery during service sparking admiration, tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes. She felt the weight of pride swell in her chest. Her husband's dreams were alive in these moments, igniting a flicker of courage she thought lost. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet just as Sarah's heart began to soar with empowerment, the atmosphere thickened as Charles, still fuming, ready to speak. The room fell into an expectant hush, a collective breath held in uncertainty. His words, sharp and heavy, cut through the camaraderie like a knife. The tension grew, blending fear and anticipation, a crossroads of unity and discord. Sarah felt all eyes on her, the hidden strength she'd just begun to recognize wavering beneath the weight of judgment. Would she rise to reclaim her narrative, her dignity, or would she, like so many others, be buried beneath the expectations of Riverton? The night hung poised on the edge of something momentous. In that heartbeat, everything seemed possible. The silence in the diner was palpable, the tension thick enough to slice through. Sarah's heart raced as Charles cleared his throat, his imposing figure casting a shadow over the room. "Let us be honest," he began, his voice a dull roar. "Is this really the place to waste resources? Charity can't be a crutch. It's time for people to stand on their own 2 feet. Gasps echoed, ripples of disbelief traveling through the crowd. Sarah felt the blood rush to her face. The words jabbed at her heart, and instinctively, she took a step toward the center of the room. But doubt gripped her, and she hesitated. What could she say that would change a mind hardened by arrogance? Then Jake's voice rang out again, cutting through the tension. "My mom works harder than anyone, and she's not afraid to ask for help when she needs it. You think you understand struggle? You don't know the first thing about it." With each word, the fiery spirit inside him gained strength, filling Sarah with a fierce pride mixed with worry. What would Charles do next? The room buzzed with murmurs, some supportive, others unsure. Sarah felt her feet firmly planted on the ground as she watched her son battle for dignity. She loved his tenacity, but was it worth the risk of an all-out confrontation? Yet, seeing other heads nodding in agreement with Jake sparked a small flame in her heart. Enough. Sarah finally found her voice, raw but determined. The room quieted yet again, eyes turning to her with anticipation. She felt the weight of the moment as she straightened her apron, embracing the courage that had been brewing inside her for so long. You don't get to decide who is worthy of support. Her voice rang clear and strong, fueled by everything she carried: the grief, the loneliness, the struggle. Sarah. Charles interjected, his confidence wavering. This isn't a debate. People need to take responsibility. No, she shot back, her heart racing with an intensity she hadn't felt in a long time. People need community. They need understanding. You see us as failures, but we're fighting every day. For our families, for ourselves. We keep going because of hope, and hope is not a weakness. The air between them crackled, the tension shifting. A woman from the other side of the diner stood up, tears glistening in her eyes. I lost my job last year. I never thought I'd need help, but I did. And it was people like Sarah who lifted me. One by one, others rose to share their stories, their voices weaving together, a tapestry of struggle and resilience that slowly enveloped the diner's interior. A palpable change began to move through the crowd. The judgmental glances softened, replaced by looks of shared understanding. Conversations began to erupt around her, gratitude and vulnerability pouring forth like a tidal wave. In that moment, Sarah felt a shift, a burgeoning community, united in the face of adversity. However, just as it felt like the tide was turning, a sharp laugh erupted from the back of the room. Charles couldn't let this go, anger etching deeper lines into his face. You think this will change anything? You'll all still be just as helpless tomorrow. Sarah's heart sank. How could someone be so blind? But within that sinking feeling, a new resolve was born. She couldn't let him snuff out the light that had begun to shine in the diner that night. It was time to stand tall, to fight not just for herself, but for everyone who felt lost or overlooked. As she took a deep breath and prepared to push back against Charles once more, other voices began to rise in support. A chorus of strength began to form, a symphony of solidarity that wrapped around Sarah like a warm embrace. And as she locked eyes with her son, she knew they were on the brink of something transformative. What would it take to break through Charles's facade and ignite change in Riverton? The night was far from over, and amidst sweeping currents of emotions, Sarah felt hope flicker like a candle in the dark. She was ready for the fight, but she did need help. How many others were willing to rise with her? The diner buzzed with a strange mix of energy and uncertainty. As more people shared their stories, the oppressive weight of Charles's words began to weaken. Sarah felt the rising tide of unity around her. It was as if the air itself was charged with pulses of hope. The clatter of plates and forks became a distant background, no longer the sound of isolation but a rhythm of community. Jake glanced up at his mother, his eyes shining with admiration. In that moment, Sarah felt stronger than she had in years. She could feel the support wrapping around her. It was a feeling she had yearned for since losing her husband, this sense of being part of something, a collective heartbeat. Let us be honest, Sarah said, her voice cutting through the chatter. We all have faced our battles. But look around you. We're not alone. We are a vibrant community. And together we can lift ourselves even if some folks want to see us fail. She gestured toward Charles, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. A man across the diner, his weathered face lined with experience, spoke up. I haven't been able to find anything since the mill closed down. But you know what? I've got friends here, people who've helped me stay afloat even when it felt impossible. His words won nods of agreement. There was strength in shared struggles. This was a truth echoing around the diner, igniting fires of courage. Charles, however, was unyielding. You think sharing sad stories somehow changes your situations? No one is going to hand you life on a silver platter. You must fight harder if you want to change your fate. His scornful laugh echoed, but even he was beginning to feel the tide turning. Sarah felt the sting of his words, but the expressions around the room told her everything she needed to know. People were considering her. They were choosing to believe in community over despair. She stepped forward, feeling the warmth of Jake's small hand wrapped around hers. I may not have all the answers, she continued, her voice steady, but I do know that building bridges is better than building walls. Each one of us here carries a burden, and when we share those burdens we find strength. She let those words settle, appealing to the humanity beneath the hardened exterior of even Charles. I'm tired of being ashamed to ask for help, a young woman chimed in from the front. We all need to be there for one another. It's how we grow. The crowd responded with soft murmurs of agreement, their faces lighting up with understanding. The energy shifted. People were leaning forward, encouraging the connection. Sarah felt the swell of hope bubbling in her chest. They were ready. They were defying not just Charles, but the isolation that had silenced them for too long. Suddenly, Charles's expression faltered. He had expected this gathering to remain fragmented and disunited, with divisions highlighted by economic struggles. Instead, he was witnessing a dynamic shift. Sarah caught the moments of insecurity crossing his features and seized them. Even if some believe we don't deserve support, we'll show them what strength looks like. It starts here and it starts today. As she spoke, the realization of their shared resilience ignited a spark. One by one, the patrons began to rise from their seats. The once quiet diner now hummed with affirmations. Together. Someone shouted. Another echoed, we are stronger. In that overwhelming moment, Sarah felt invincible, the weight of grief and loneliness lifting like the fog at dawn. But just as victory seemed at hand, she caught a glimpse of something in Charles's eyes. Desperation, fear, or perhaps a hint of understanding. She didn't know, but it was enough to make her pulse quicken. Would it be enough to truly confront someone who had built their life on cruelty? As the crowd continued to rise, Sarah prepared herself for the next step. Would they find common ground? Or was this battle just beginning? The atmosphere in the diner was electric after Sarah's rallying words. People moved closer together, their shared warmth creating a tangible buzz. She could feel their energy wrapping around her like a blanket, urging her forward. But Charles sat there, defiantly anchored in his seat, blocking the tide of unity with his steely glare. Listen. Sarah's voice rose above the soft chatter. We all have scars. We all hurt. But scars can remind us that we've survived. I lost my husband, but I didn't lose my spirit. Look at all of us. This is more than just surviving. This is about thriving. The crowd stirred with her words, an incantation summoning a deeper connection to everything that had brought them together. But even as she spoke, Sarah's heart raced at the thought of Charles's next move. Would he shatter the moment or concede? I never needed pity, Charles barked back, voice like gravel. You think a little group therapy can change reality? Life doesn't care about your feelings. Sarah felt a surge of anger but reined it in. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone who needed validation for their struggles. This isn't about pity, Charles, she countered. It's about acknowledging our reality together. Facing the truth that we need each other. We can't fight this alone. We never were meant to. Several patrons lent their voices, echoing support. Yes, right. A woman in the back shouted, her hand raised defiantly. We do need each other. We need to support one another to create a better future. A ripple of agreement passed through the crowd, as fists pumped in solidarity and murmurs of yes spread like wildfire. Sarah felt a flicker of hope ignite further inside her, urging her to press on. But even as she spoke, she kept a wary eye on Charles. The corners of his mouth twitched, a sign of a crack in his armor, perhaps? You really think we can just put our problems in a blender and make them disappear? He threw back, the edge of skepticism still in his words. Get a real plan. Hope doesn't pay the bills. Let us start with one step, Charles, Sarah said, her voice gentler now in the face of his skepticism. Let us start with understanding. Let us find what we can work on together instead of against one another. Every journey begins with a single step, and it's easy to dismiss the value of it when you're standing still. Silence cascaded through the diner like the tolling of a soft bell. Each person felt the weighty significance of her words echoing in the air. Even Charles seemed for a moment to consider the depth of possibility right in front of him. Suddenly, Jake piped up, his innocent voice cutting through like a beacon. I think we should have a project. Something fun. We could clean up the park or start a community garden. We can call it Together. His bright eyes glimmered with hope, and Sarah felt a swell of pride mixed with the buoyant energy spilling forth from the crowd. The idea resonated, sparks igniting like wildfire. Questions turned into ideas and voices raised in agreement. Let us do it. We could use the space to grow food together. Another voice called, but Charles remained silent, his expression inscrutable. As energy swirled around them, gathering momentum, Sarah's heart sank. Would he smash their budding hopes and dreams again? Please just give us a chance, she implored. While the room buzzed with laughter and ideas, the tremors of vulnerability were real. Were they strong enough to break through Charles's walls? Then came the moment she had been waiting for, the hesitant meeting of eyes. Charles, even with his hardened heart, was caught in the warmth radiating from the community. Perhaps there was something to these shared stories after all. As Sarah met his gaze just long enough to discern a flicker of vulnerability, her pulse quickened. But what would it take to unveil that hidden strength buried beneath his barriers? Would he join them on this journey, or was he still too far gone? The heart of the diner pulsed with hope as they all looked toward Charles, waiting for him to reveal his choice. Would he shatter the connection or finally find a reason to belong? The diner's chatter seemed to hold its breath, hanging on the precipice of Charles's response. Sarah felt each second stretch painfully. She could see the wheels turning in his mind as he weighed the voices around him against the loneliness he had worn like a shield for too long. Maybe, he began, the word barely escaping his lips, softer than expected. The eyes of the patrons flared with anticipation, like fireflies caught in a sudden breeze. Sarah leaned forward, praying for more. Maybe you're right, he continued, cheeks flushing under the weight of exposure. Maybe I've been too stubborn. The words hung there, tenuous and flickering like a candle flame. Could he be turning a corner? She held her breath, waiting for the backlash that usually followed vulnerability, but it didn't come. Jake, Charles said, catching the boy's gaze, that community garden idea, it sounds nice. A ripple of understanding swept through the diner. Eyes widened and whispers bounced off the walls, a fabric of interconnected hope weaving tighter. Charles, the man who had dismissed their shared pain, was opening up. Sarah's heart soared. We can look into getting soil and seeds. We can even have days for planting and harvesting together. The excitement in her voice seemed to rekindle Charles's spirit just a little. She needed to keep the momentum. What do you mean by together? He pressed, his defenses still flickering in the fact that support and commitment came with responsibilities too. Jake piped up, undeterred. We can have potlucks and invite everyone. Everyone can bring their favorite dish. His enthusiasm was infectious, turning the air electric once more. Yes, that is perfect, came a chorus from others, echoing the boy's vision, spinning it into a momentum that felt unstoppable. But Charles shifted again, his brow furrowed. And what if it doesn't work? What if we fail? The silence that fell was heavy with the weight of unasked questions. Sarah could sense the unspilling fear hiding beneath his hard exterior. Then we'll try again, she said gently. And through it all, we will be there for one another. That's what this is about, isn't it? Learning and growing together through success and failure. A slow nod broke from him, a reluctant acceptance that wasn't fully formed but was there. The crowd caught on to the shift, their hope blossoming like the spring flowers that would eventually bloom in their community garden. Let us have our first meeting tonight right here, Sarah suggested, rallying the energy back into motion. Anyone interested can share ideas. We'll make it happen. A wave of approval swept the diner, boosted by laughter and excitement. People began clapping, echoing the laughter of children playing in the sun. Even Charles cracked a small grin, a hint of the vulnerability that had broken through appearing as a stitch in his armor. Maybe this isn't such a bad idea, he murmured, glancing momentarily at Jake, who beamed. But as the diner's warmth enveloped them, something flickered in her gut. Was Charles truly on board, or would he retreat like before? As seconds passed, Sarah found herself looking between the smiling faces and Charles, whose eyes still reflected shadows of doubt. Charles's transformation seemed a long way off, but could this spark truly light a flame? The evening buzz faded into a quiet hum as Sarah raised her glass, inviting others to join. To new beginnings. She cheered, her voice crystal clear, almost ringing, but just then, something cracked in the diner's idyllic moment. A shout came from the back, a voice laden with urgency. You guys need to see this. All eyes turned toward the source, a rush of unease pooling in Sarah's stomach. What was happening now? The night that began with hope threatened to shift into something unforeseen, and the question loomed. What revelation lay beyond the newly opened possibilities? A wave of murmurs spread across the diner, curiosity intertwining with unease. Sarah felt her heart race as she turned toward the back, where a group of teenagers stood, faces pale and tense. One of them, a girl with dark hair and wide eyes, stepped forward, her voice trembling. "You need to see what's happening outside." "It's it." The girl struggled to find the right words, fear palpable in the air. Charles pushed away from the table, his earlier resolve evaporating, replaced by a sudden urgency. "What is it?" he asked, his brow furrowed. Jake's excitement faded into concern. "Let us go," he piped up, taking Sarah's hand and pulling her toward the door. Charles followed closely behind, the weight of the night pressing down on them like thick FOS. They stepped outside. The chill of the evening wrapped around them. The streetlights flickered overhead, revealing a crowd gathered a short distance away. Word of what lay beyond spread through the diner like wildfire, igniting a spark of dread. In the center of the gathering, a small figure lay sprawled on the ground, surrounded by a cluster of concerned faces. Sarah's heart plummeted. She squeezed Jake's hand tighter, glancing up at Charles, whose expression had shifted from uncertainty to alarm. "It's Mrs. Donnelly," someone shouted from the crowd, a voice rising above the murmurs. She collapsed. Panic surged through Sarah. Mrs. Donnelly, the town's beloved librarian, was known for her kind heart and warm smile. How could this happen? The crowd parted slightly as they approached, revealing Mrs. Donnelly's pale face. A young woman knelt beside her, pressing a cloth to her forehead. She's not breathing properly. Charles stepped forward, instinct taking over. "Someone call 911. He shouted, his usual hesitation fading. It was a command that echoed through the small crowd, igniting an immediate response. The wait felt like an eternity, every second stretching as Sarah watched Mrs. Donnelly struggling. Her arms were limp, and she looked so frail, so vulnerable. It shook Sarah to her core. It wasn't just a neighbor. It was community. It was life itself teetering on the edge. "Stay with me, Mrs. Donnelly," Sarah heard the woman beside her say, panic brewing in her voice. "Help is on the way." Come on, Sarah whispered, her breath hitching in her throat. She caught sight of Charles, who was now firmly planted next to Mrs. Donnelly, his normally rigid stance replaced by a quiet strength. Was this the same man who questioned every little step only moments ago? In that instance he was transforming before her eyes, willing to be the person they all needed. Jake pulled Sarah closer. "Is she going to be okay?" he asked, worry etching lines on his young face. "I hope so, buddy. I really hope so," she murmured, squeezing his little hand as sirens wailed in the distance. Hope flickered like the candlelight from the diner's windows. In that moment of heightened emotional crisis, Sarah realized they were all connected in a way that both terrified and elated her. The fragility of life surged through them, pushing them closer, creating bonds they hadn't realized were there. Then, as the ambulance lights flashed across the street, illuminating their faces like a beacon of hope, the unspoken tension in the crowd began to dissolve. Perhaps this crisis, this moment of fear, could serve as a turning point for them all. Would this galvanizing event inspire the community to come together, forging newfound strength and resilience within them? As she looked at Charles, she knew their journey to vulnerability and connection was far from over. But would this reality put those fragile steps to the test or galvanize them into taking the leap forward together? The sirens grew louder, but the answers remained shrouded in the uncertainty of night. What awaited them on this path they had begun to tread? The flashing lights of the ambulance bathed the street in a surreal glow, casting long shadows over the frightened onlookers. Sarah felt a wave of warmth wash over her, juxtaposed with the chill of fear lingering in the air. She watched as paramedics hurried from the vehicle, their faces focused, filled with urgency. For a moment the outside world faded. It was as if time itself paused as they descended upon Mrs. Donnelly. "Is she going to be all right?" Jake's voice broke through her fog, desperation lacing his words. "I don't know, sweetie," Sarah replied softly, not wanting to share her rising dread. The fear that engulfed her was heavy, knotting her stomach. She looked at Jake, his small face filled with worry, and willed a smile onto her lips. "Let us just focus on being positive, okay?" Charles leaned closer, observing the scene with an intensity she hadn't seen in him before. The hesitation that used to cloud his eyes was replaced with a fierce protectiveness, a determination to make sure everything would be all right. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling a strange kind of solidarity building in the crowd. One by one, bags were placed down, coats were adjusted, and people leaned in closer, united by a common concern. As the paramedics gently rolled Mrs. Donnelly onto a stretcher, a quiet settled over the crowd. The collective holding of breath felt like harmony, everyone waiting, hoping. Sarah's heart raced, her palms sweating against Jake's small, reassuring grip. Suddenly the crowd parted as Mrs. Donnelly was lifted onto the ambulance. Amidst the chaos, a woman stepped forward, her voice commanding yet soothing. "Let us give them space. They need to work," she called out. Instinctively, the crowd stepped back, creating a path for the paramedics. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and for a brief moment everything fell silent. The relentless honking of cars, the distant whispers turned into a ghost of a memory. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. They had all shared a moment of vulnerability, a moment that could easily morph into a collective grief if things didn't go well. "Do you think they'll really fix her?" Jake's voice rose again, small and fragile, piercing the heavy silence. "I believe they will, Jake. They have to," Sarah said, confidence lacing her words, even as her own heart trembled as the sirens wailed back into life and the ambulance pulled away. Something shifted. Charles turned to face the small crowd. His expression softened. "Let us not just stand here. We should check on each other. See if anyone needs anything. Food, a drink, just someone to talk to." His words hung in the air, and one by one, faces brightened with agreeance. Sarah found her heart swelling with a warmth that flickered despite the fear. Charles wasn't just a bystander anymore, he was guiding, he was lifting. In that subtle shift, Sarah saw the beginning of something, a recognition that they were part of something bigger than themselves. The crowd began to disperse, and Sarah lingered, watching as connections formed. Neighbors began to discuss their own experiences, sharing stories of times when they needed help or the moments that had bonded them over the years. In the midst of the chatter, Sarah felt a pull toward Charles. She approached him, searching for reassurance. "Do you think we can really come together like this?" Charles nodded slowly, hope igniting in his eyes. "I think it's inevitable. We've seen what it means to stand together." As they spoke, another figure broke away from the crowd, a young girl with tears shining in her eyes. "What if Mrs. Donnelly doesn't come back?" Her question echoed in the night like an electric charge. Suddenly, Sarah felt the weight of uncertainty settle over her once more. Could they navigate this fragile moment as a community? And what would happen when the dust settled on this night? The flickering streetlights illuminated faces filled with worry and determination. They were all scared, but it was more than just fear, it was an awakening. What would tomorrow bring? Would they face that together, or would old divisions return? The questions loomed heavy as the first stars began to twinkle in the deepening sky, offering a glimmer of hope, yet the answers felt so far away. The next morning, Sarah awoke to a warm breeze flowing through her open window. Sunlight streamed in, filling the room with a gentle glow. She sat up, stretching her arms, but the warmth couldn't chase away the worry that hung over her from the night before. Jake was still asleep, his small body curled up under the covers. She took a moment to watch him, the peacefulness of his face offering her a brief reprieve from her own turbulent thoughts. After a quick shower, she stepped into the kitchen and brewed a pot of coffee black, just how she liked it. While she waited, she pulled out the ingredients for breakfast, trying to concentrate on the mundane tasks of life. But her mind was racing, playing back the image of Mrs. Donnelly, the sirens, that frightened little girl. What exactly would happen next? The faint chime of her phone pulled her attention away from the sizzling bacon. She hurried to grab it off the kitchen counter, her heart racing. It was a message from Charles. "Hey Sarah, is Jake awake? I was thinking we could gather some folks together later today to check in. Maybe bring food to Mrs. Donnelly's family if they need it. Let us turn this into something good. What do you think?" Her heart swelled at the thought. They were doing more than just standing together, they were building something. She quickly thumbed a reply, her fingers dancing over the screen with excitement. "That sounds like a great idea. Let me know when you want to meet up." After breakfast, she woke Jake and explained the plan. His eyes lit up at the mention of helping Mrs. Donnelly, igniting an eagerness in him that reminded Sarah of the little boy he used to be. They grabbed some sandwiches and fresh fruit from the local market before heading over to Mrs. Donnelly's house. As they walked, Jake chattered about all the things he wanted to do when they arrived. The energy between them was infectious, a lightness breaking through the haze of uncertainty. When they arrived, several neighbors were already gathered outside. Sarah spotted Charles, busy organizing a makeshift assembly line for food. He looked up, and when their eyes locked, she felt a spark of connection, a shared understanding that they were part of a greater purpose. With a deep breath, she joined the group, Jake trailing behind her, beaming with excitement. "Great to see you, Sarah." Charles greeted her warmly, motioning for her to help with the refreshments. "This is incredible. Everyone showed up," she said, glancing around at the faces she hadn't seen in ages. It was a mix of familiar and unexpected, all united by one shared concern. "Yes, I think we're finally seeing what it means to be a community." He looked at Jake and grinned. "You ready to help out?" Jake nodded eagerly, jumping right in, inspired by the sight of everyone working together. A laugh escaped Sarah's lips as she watched him take his place among the adults, stacking plates like it was a game as they prepared the food. A neighbor named Mrs. Chun approached Sarah with a small smile. "I know everyone is worried. I spoke with Mrs. Donnelly's son this morning. He said they are hopeful. She's stable now but still in ICU for the next few days." Relief washed over Sarah, but it was bittersweet. The uncertainty lingered in the background. They were starting to create community, but was it enough? Through laughter and stories shared, they built a bridge, connecting over instances of strength in the face of adversity. It was powerful, this collective heartbeat echoing in the afternoon sun. But just as they were ready to start handing out the meals, an emergency vehicle pulled up. The crowd quieted, a hush falling over the gathering. Heart-pounding, Sarah's mind raced. Was it news about Mrs. Donnelly? What could it mean? The unspoken fear hung in the air, threading through their connections. The moment of truth was approaching fast. What would it reveal? The engine of the emergency vehicle rumbled to a stop, and from the sleek, white van emerged a figure in uniform. A collective breath was held as the gathered neighbors turned, faces reflecting concern and curiosity. Sarah's heart sank. This could mean anything. The paramedic stepped away from the vehicle, clipboard in hand, scanning the small crowd that had formed. He took a moment before approaching Mrs. Chan, who had stepped forward. Their heads bent together, and though their voices were low, Sarah could see the urgency in their body language. Mrs. Chan's eyes were wide, glancing back at the group as if searching for answers that would not come easily. Suddenly, the fear that had held Sarah captive surged again, tightening in her chest. The cheerful energy that had wrapped around them minutes before seemed to evaporate like morning dew. Jake, who had been gathered with the other children, shifted closer to her, sensing the shift in the air. "What's going on, Mom?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She knelt beside him, brushing a hand through his hair. "I don't know, sweetheart. Just hold on for a moment." The whispering crowd grew anxious, exchanging glances. Charles came over, his brow furrowed with concern. "Do you think they have news?" Sarah shrugged, unable to articulate the worry brewing within her. Just then, the paramedic turned away from Mrs. Chan and stepped toward the group, clearing his throat. "Hey everyone. I know you're all here for Mrs. Donnelly, and I appreciate your concern." The crowd leaned in closer, hungry for word. "I have some updates. Mrs. Donnelly is stable, but her recovery will take time. We're doing everything we can." Relief washed over some of the onlookers, but Sarah caught the look in the medic's eyes. It was a mixture of assurance and something more, an unspoken weight of reality that lingered underneath his words. "Her family is truly touched by all your support. I can't express how much it means. But I need to ask a favor." He took a deep breath. "We're trying to keep her spirits high, and it would be wonderful if you could send some letters or messages. Personal notes about community, things that lift her heart. It can help in her recovery." The power of his request settled into the group, shifting their focus from worry to purpose. Sarah felt a surge of energy and hope ripple through her. This was something actionable, a way to reach out when everything felt out of control. She spotted Jake's eyes lighting up and she grinned at him. "See, we can help Mrs. Donnelly," she said, voice steadying as she gathered courage. "We can write her letters." Encouraged, the crowd buzzed with excitement, sharing ideas on how to create dozens of heartfelt notes. Moments of laughter returned, rekindling the sense of community. The dread that had threatened to pull them apart now knit them closer together. We should also collect pictures, Charles suggested, beaming. Let us show her the faces of the neighborhood. Let us make it colorful and bright just like us. Jake bounced on his feet. Can I draw her a picture? Of course you can. Sarah beamed back, filled with pride. You have a gift for that. While plans were made, the earlier tension dissipated into action. Friends turned into partners as they rallied with a renewed spirit as they got to work. An unexpected sound came from behind another vehicle pulled up, this one a familiar sight. It was Mrs. Donnelly's son. The breath caught in Sarah's throat. The mystery of her strength grew clearer. Would he bring news that would lift them further or another wave of uncertain emotions? All eyes were on him as he stepped out, shielding his eyes from the sun. Would he bring clarity to their shared worries, or deepen the unknown? It was clear they were on the edge of something significant, waiting for his next words as the fresh breeze flowed around them. As Mrs. Donnelly's son stepped forward, his eyes scanning the crowd, a wave of anticipation filled the air. The community had come alive with hope, united in their desire to support her. There was a deep understanding that they were all intertwined by a thread of compassion, and now they waited to hear what he had to say. Thank you all for being here. He began, his voice choked with emotion. My mother means the world to this town. She has given so much to each of us over the years. The crowd shifted, leaning in as if they were drawing strength from his vulnerability. She is stable and recovering, but it's the love from all of you that will help her heal. He continued, and Sarah felt her heart swell at the truth in his words. Jake tugged on her sleeve. Can we really help her, Mom? He asked, his innocence radiating hope. She knelt beside him, ruffling his hair, her heart buoyed by the spirit of their small core. Absolutely we can, Sarah replied, her voice steady, looking around. Every face echoed their shared commitment to lift someone they cared for. The ideas started sparking, fluttering from one person to another. As the community formed groups brainstorming ideas for letters and drawings, a tangible energy swelled, wrapping around them like the warm embrace of a summer evening. Laughter erupted as children began exchanging ideas, their innocence pure, while adults whispered shares of fond memories with Mrs. Donnelly. Charles, standing nearby, nodded at her. Did you ever think it would come to this? He asked, a genuine smile breaking through the remnants of his earlier gruffness. Sarah shook her head, her voice soft like a gentle breeze. I had my doubts, but now it feels like we're becoming something greater. With renewed resolve, Charles widened his stance, gathering attention. Let us set a time to meet again with all these notes and pictures. We can read them to her together. It's not just about sending her something. It's about building her up, letting her know she is not alone, he declared, igniting a ripple of approval. A chorus of voices erupted in agreement. Let us do it. The sun continued its steady climb, casting golden rays over them as works of art began filling up around the picnic tables. Crayons, colored paper, bright stickers, the simple tools of imagination sparked creativity. Sarah found herself painting furious strokes of vibrant colors, while Jake drew a picture of Mrs. Donnelly sitting in her favorite reading chair, surrounded by the books she adored. Together, the simple act of creating had transformed them all. Old grievances slipped away, replaced by shared laughter and the joy of collective purpose. Even Charles was engaged, laughing and bantering with other neighbors, his earlier rigidity fading like winter's chill before the warmth of spring as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. A sense of triumph surged within Sarah. It wasn't just Mrs. Donnelly they were uplifting. They were lifting one another. The community was no longer at odds. They had forged bonds of understanding, compassion, and support. That night, when the gathering dispersed, Sarah felt lighter. She hugged Jake tight, feeling his heartbeat against her. We did a good thing today, didn't we? She asked, and he nodded, his face aglow with pride. Yeah, we're like heroes. He beamed, and her heart swelled. The following days found them visiting Mrs. Donnelly in the hospital, notes and drawings in hand. Each message they read brought tears of gratitude to her eyes, a reminder of the love that bound them all together. As they left the hospital one sunny afternoon, Mrs. Donnelly turned to Sarah. You were the spark, dear. You led the way, she said, her voice filled with sincerity. Sarah felt a shift within her, a lightness, a strength she hadn't known was missing. It was then she understood. Community wasn't about avoidance or judgments. It was about connection. It was about standing up together in the face of struggles and creating a space where everyone felt valued. And as she looked around, she saw it. The small town of Riverton transformed. They had reclaimed pride, compassion, and most importantly, each other. Together truly is better, she whispered to herself, and a radiant smile broke across her face. This was just the beginning. So, if you felt that spark like Sarah, then it's time you take action. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second. Hit that bell for all notifications because you don't want to miss our next exclusive stories filled with inspiration. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and bring more uplifting tales to life. And let me know your feelings about this transformative journey in the comments below. Your voice matters. Lastly, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Let's keep the fire of hope alive.